Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I'm Jayne Codnita, and it's Wednesday, the 30th of August, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy discussed the unfolding power struggle in the world economy today, following the recent success of the BRICS summit and the IMF and World Bank reforms that will be pushed by the United States in the upcoming G20 summit in India. In Africa, the military of Gabon declared a coup and claimed that they ousted its president after winning the elections for the third time. An election that comes with a price? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said he asked money from Western allies to be able to hold their elections. What does Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy have to say about this? We'll find out about that later. In Russia, Wagner Chief Yevgeny Prigozhin has been laid to rest in a cemetery in St. Petersburg. And leftist lawmakers' attempts failed after the House swiftly approved of the Office of the Vice President's budget for 2024. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. First in our news, members of the House Committee on Appropriations have united to swiftly approve the proposed budget of the Office of the Vice President for the next year. MJ Mondihar has the report.
The leftist lawmakers from the Makabayan bloc failed to take up any action after the abrupt termination of the budget hearing for the office of the Vice President. Vice President Sara Duterte was present in the House of Representatives to defend the proposed budget of 2.385 billion pesos for the office of the Vice President in 2024. After the AVP presentation detailing the allocation of funds for the next year, this is what happened.
In line with the long-standing tradition of giving the Office of the Vice President parliamentary courtesy, I move to terminate the budget of the Office of the Vice President.
I object,
We have
Madam
a motion
Chair.
duly seconded. We have 21 members of the Committee on Appropriations manifesting for the approval of the motion. The Chair declares for the motion to terminate the presentation of the budget approved.
Consequently, the leftist representatives were unsuccessful in questioning the confidential funds of the OVP. In the 2024 proposal of the OVP, 500 million pesos is allocated for confidential funds. The Vice President's office uses these funds for matters related to national security.
Ma'am, ang bilis po na-approve ng budget niyo. Congrats, ma'am.
In total, the budget hearing for the Office of the Vice President did not last for more than 10 minutes. The House Committee on Appropriations took a few minutes of rest and convened for the 2024 proposed budget of the Department of Education. Once again, VP Sara defended the budget as the Education Secretary alongside other officials. The next year's budget for the education sector is 924.7 billion pesos, a 3.3% increase from this year's 758.6 billion pesos. VP Sara admits that the funding needs to address the rising numbers of students. Thus, they have two strategies to address this.
The Department of Education is currently pursuing two tracks to solve the problems of basic education. Of course, we are there with the traditional build more classrooms and hire more teachers track that has been the solution of previous administrations and previous secretaries. But right now, we are pursuing another track as well, and that is learning from the lessons from the pandemic, where we want to institutionalize the blended learning program.
According to the younger Duterte, blended learning is a solution to classroom congestion and a shortage of teachers, among other challenges in basic education. The DepEd will rely on modern technology for teaching. Congress members then questioned the proposed 150 million pesos intelligence and confidential funds of the DepEd for 2024. However, VP Sara asserted that the program is crucial for student protection.
Considering the universe of shortages in the Department of Education, which would need adequate funding, Madam Secretary, would you voluntarily withdraw your request for confidential funds?
Madam Chair, there is a purpose and a need for confidential funds in the Department of Education because basic education is intertwined with national security.
VP Sara leaves it to the House of Representatives and the Senate to decide whether to grant the requested confidential and intelligence funds for the two agencies under her jurisdiction.
With that, the Office of the Vice President said that the programs, activities, and projects that are meant to be funded by the CF 2022 had already been identified by their office. For Ganamibul of Philippines, I'm Jay Mondihar, SMNI News.
Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy defended Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte from allegations by leftist groups. Daniela Paulita reports.
Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ is confident that Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte can answer the allegations of ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro against the office of the Vice President over the 2022 confidential funds. To recall, Representative Castro said that the office of the Vice President spent 125 million pesos confidential funds in 2022 without congressional authorization. In a statement, Vice President said that there was nothing irregular or unauthorized about its spending, and the required liquidation and accomplishment reports have been submitted to the oversight agencies. Pastor Apollo believes that ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro wants to undermine the credibility of Vice President Sara because she protects the children from the deception of leftist groups.
I know that the motive of this leftist group is just to undermine the credibility of our Education Secretary, which will fail miserably. They are trying to find fault with her because she is assailing them by this confidential fund that would help her protect the children from being recruited by this leftist group to become NPAs. So that's why they hate her for that.
Meanwhile, the good pastor reaffirmed his full support to the leadership of Vice President Sara.
We are going to support the Vice President and Education Secretary 100%.
The Vice President has been urging the Makabayan Bloc to end its rabid vilification against the OVP over the 2022 confidential funds if it does not have any substantive information to back up imputations of misuse. For God and my beloved country, this has been Daniela Paulita, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, Russian Wagner Chief Yevgeny Prigozhin has been laid to rest in a cemetery in St. Petersburg, Russia. And now that he's gone, who will lead the paramilitary group Wagner? Berhil Parba has the details.
Wagner Chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, known for his loud, brash and posh action, had a somber funeral ceremony held behind closed doors with only close relatives and friends in attendance. The Kremlin earlier said that Russian President Vladimir Putin is not supposed to attend regardless of what arrangements were made. Prigozhin has been laid to rest at the Borussky Cemetery in St. Petersburg. Images circulating on social media suggest that Prigozhin has been buried alongside his father, and flags of Wagner and the Russian Federation were flown at his tomb. Prigozhin was killed alongside of some of his elite officials after his private jet crashed in Russia's Tver region last Wednesday. Prigozhin died along with his close associates, including Dmitry Utkin, who was believed to be the co-founder of Wagner, and Valery Shekalov, the non-military logistics chief of Wagner. The Russian Investigative Committee is currently investigating the cause of the plane crash. Aside from being a mercenary boss, Prigozhin is known to be a restaurateur and caterer who led state contracts in the early 2000s, and his companies eventually became suppliers to the military and the education sectors of Russia. Recent speculations emerged on what will become of the Wagner paramilitary group now that Prigozhin and his close associates are gone. Last week, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko said Wagner forces currently in his country would continue to operate. A Wall Street Journal report said that Russian intelligence chief Andrei Averyanov is expected to take over Wagner's operation in Africa, as reported by Wall Street Journal. Averyanov apparently has a media reputation for allegedly eliminating the dissidents of Putin. He is the head of the covert operations unit in Russia's military intelligence service and has met several African leaders during the Russia-African summit. This event also marked Prigozhin's first public appearance after leading a short-lived mutiny against the top military brass of Russia. Reporting this has been Verhil Parba, SMNI News.
Drones have launched an assault on Pskov Airport situated near the NATO border, Sigrid Castañeda reports.
A swarm of drones targeted Pskov Airport, located near the NATO territories of Estonia and Latvia. The attack prompted air defenses to respond, causing an explosion that lit up the night sky, as captured in videos circulating on social media. Governor Mikhail Vedernikov confirmed that the Russian military was countering the drone assault. There are no reported casualties, but authorities are assessing property damage. As precaution, the region's airspace was temporarily closed, and flights from Pskov Airport for August 30 were cancelled to evaluate potential runway damage. While emergency services reported damage to 4 Il-76 transport planes on the ground, the Russian military has yet to confirm this. Multiple sources claimed that over a dozen drones targeted the airport, with air defenses engaging additional unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs. Reports suggest around 15 Ukrainian drones were responsible for the attack, intercepted and shut down by Russian forces. The incident caused a crash or explosion at the airport, but no casualties were recorded. The attack's geopolitical significance is underscored by Pskov's proximity to NATO members Estonia and Latvia. The city is 30 kilometers from Estonian border and 60 kilometers southwest of Latvia. The drones likely passed over eastern Belarus if launched from Ukraine. This event follows previous drone-related tensions, with Ukraine using drones against Russian assets. The Kremlin dismissed these attacks as desperate distractions from the situation in Kyiv and claimed that their counteroffensive was failing. Reporting this has been Sigrid Castañeda, SMNI News.
In Africa, the country of Gabon is facing a political crisis after its military seized power just minutes after the country's election body announced that their incumbent president had won a third term. Here's my report. A group of senior military officers in the Central African country of Gabon said they had seized power on Wednesday. The military officers appeared on television channel Gabon 24 to announce the coup and said they represented all Gabonese security and defense forces. According to them, the election results were cancelled. All state institutions were dissolved, and all borders of the country were shut down until further notice. The military's announcement came just minutes after the Gabonese poll body announced the incumbent president Ali Bongo's election victory. Reports emerged that gunfire was heard in the capital, Libreville, following the announcement of the coup. Following the announcement, people took to the streets to show their support to the military coup leaders. Gabon is a small but oil-rich African country. It is the fifth largest oil-producing nation in Africa, and its government is a member of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC. The recent election victory of 64-year-old Ali Bongo would have been his third term as the president of Gabon. He won 64.2% of the votes in elections. Bongo was elected for the first time in 2009 after the death of his father, Omar Bongo Ondimba, who had been the president of Gabon for 4 decades. Meanwhile, the coup gained various reactions from the international community, particularly from its former colonial ruler, France, with Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne saying that they are following the situation closely. China also said it was closely following the situation and urged for the safety of Ali Bongo to be guaranteed. The Gabonese coup, if proved successful, would be the 8th coup in West and Central Africa since 2020, with the latest one held in Niger in July of this year. The military officers of Burkina Faso, Chad, Guinea, and Mali also seized power. Reporting, this has been Jayne Codnita, SMNI News. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has declared that his country's navy will deploy nuclear weapons as the United States and its allies start new military drills in the Korean Peninsula. Sela Yoon reports.
Kim Jong-un declared that the North Korean Navy will become a component of state nuclear deterrence as South Korea, the US, and Japan held trilateral naval drills amid nuclear threats from Pyongyang. The three allies held an 11-day summer bilateral exercise last week, August 21st, to which Pyongyang viewed as a preparation for invasion. In his speech in celebration of the country's Navy Day last Monday, Kim stated that there is imminent danger of nuclear war due to the U.S. provocation. Furthermore, Kim also said that the military units of each service will be given new weaponry that is aligned with the government's decision to improve its tactical nuclear weapons operation. Since the year prior, North Korea has conducted around 100 weapon tests, many of which are nuclear-capable missiles designed to reach the U.S., South Korea, and Japan. In addition, Kim accused the U.S. of deploying its strategic assets around the Korean peninsula with its naval drills. He also recalled the trilateral summit among Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. that aimed to counter North Korea's nuclear program. In connection with this, Kim called U.S. President Joe Biden, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida as gang bosses. Sulis Buasela, Unimnida, SMNI News, South Korea.
Although Japan has already started releasing treated radioactive wastewater from the crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant, many are still urging the said country to stop its discharge, and one of them is an environmentalist from South Africa who joined the growing opposition from the international community. Natsumi Kojima has the details.
Many environmentalists from Japan and the rest of the world have since denounced Japan's act, saying it blatantly violates international law and would impact the world as a whole. However, despite cries from in and out of the country, Japan stood firm with its decision and began its wastewater discharge last August 24. Calvin Vick, former director of the Department of Tourism of Western Cape Province in South Africa, said the discharge of nuclear-contaminated water could wreak havoc on the global marine ecosystem and jeopardize the health of mankind for generations to come.
You put that water back into the sea where the fish can consume that. And we know about nanoparticles, the very small nuclear particles that can enter into the ecosystem. And I will eat it, my children will eat it, and the grandchildren will eat it. We don't know what the effect of that would be.
According to Vic, a nanoparticle entering the ecosystem could end up in the plates of the next generation through seafood consumption, and its effects on the body are still unknown.
We should be very careful of the after effects, of the byproducts of development, and don't dump the byproduct of your development onto other people. That would be my message. So let's work together as common community and find solutions that's sustainable, and let's looking at the interests of future generations, and let's build hope for the future instead of devastation and disaster.
Vic said today's globalized world cannot afford such far-reaching global ecological and public health consequences of a certain country's willful move. Ijon Hyun Krakow Natsumi News at Taishimashita, SMNI News, Japan.
In Colombia, thousands of demonstrators took to the streets to protest the drastic rise in gas prices, which went up by a whopping 50%. Margaret Parcasio files this report.
Earlier this week, hundreds of motorists and drivers from the transport sector flooded the streets of Bogota, rallying against the surging gasoline prices in the country. Trucks, other freight vehicles, and motorcycles converged, leading to roadblocks and an assembly in front of Bogota's Ministry of Transportation, with drivers demanding negotiation with the government, as captured in the footage. According to media reports, protesters, including representative groups of vehicle users and transport workers, expressed their discontent with the frequent increase in gasoline prices, which has significantly impacted their sectors. The country's truckers' union have been leading the call for a national march to address the high cost of gasoline and its continuing rise. The increase in fuel prices have been reportedly implemented to address a deficit in the fuel fund. The deficit amounts to 37 trillion Colombian pesos, or $8.9 million, and efforts are being made to reduce it to 17 trillion pesos, or $4.1 million. A periodic increase have been implemented for fuel, initially of 200 pesos
and later of 600 pesos per month to reduce the deficit. While diesel prices have not experienced the same increase as gasoline, concerns have been raised that a similar price hike might affect diesel in the future. Protesters fear that such an increase could have a detrimental impact on their work and livelihoods. This is Margaret Parcasio reporting, SMNI News.
Doctors in Australia removed a 3-inch long parasitic worm from a woman's brain in what is considered the first ever case discovered on humans. Deva Suarez reports.
A 64-year-old woman from New South Wales was sent to the hospital for brain surgery after doctors found abnormalities that required urgent operation. The doctors, however, were not prepared for the unexpected discovery they were about to make while the patient was at the operating table. The neurosurgeon who handled the patient said the 8-centimeter long parasitic roundworm was still alive and wriggling after they had extracted it from the woman's brain. The startling discovery made the experts rush to find out what precisely the parasite was. Results from molecular tests showed it was a roundworm usually found in pythons. Doctors and experts believe a carpet python spread might have shed the parasite eggs through its feces and spread it onto grass and plants touched by the patient. The journey towards discovering the roundworm started when the woman was admitted to a local hospital in January 2021 after complaining of stomach pains and diarrhea, followed by constant dry cough, fever, and night sweats. Her symptoms elevated to forgetfulness and depression in less than a year. In June 2022, she underwent a biopsy, and doctors suggested conducting urgent surgery after a scan revealed abnormalities, leading to the discovery of the parasite. An expert based at the Australian National University said the patient still needs to be treated for other larvae that might have invaded other parts of her body, such as her lungs and liver. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Devi Suarez, SMNI News, Australia.
Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ gave his reaction regarding Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's statement that his country could hold elections if the West provides them millions of dollars. Hannah Jane Sancho reports.
May God bless Ukraine. May God have mercy on Ukraine.
This is what Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ said when asked about his reaction to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's condition that his country could hold elections if the United States and European Union provided his country with money. Ukraine has been under martial law since February 24, 2022, the same day that Russia launched its so-called special military operation. The said martial law is extended every 90 days, and the Ukrainian constitution prohibits any elections during martial law. To recall, Zelensky initially asked to extend martial law until November 15, drawing criticism from politicians from allied countries for not holding elections during wartime. But in a recent interview released by the Ukrainian Presidential Office, Zelensky said that there could be elections in Ukraine. However, his government will need 5 billion hryvnia, or $135 million for it.
Я її лінці сформулював дуже швидко, і він був дуже задоволений. Якщо наші парламентарі готові, чому? Тому що нам потрібні тоді зміни до законодавства у Виборчий кодекс. Якщо я сказав йому, ви готові мені дати 5 мільярдів, тому що я не людина, яка займається бруківкою, і не зможу просто забрати з бюджету 5 мільярдів, мені здається, саме така сума потрібна на проведення виборів в звичайний час, а у військовий я не знаю, що це за сума, тому я йому сказав, якщо Сполучені Штати Америки разом з Європою дадуть нам фінансову підтримку, вибачте, я нічого не прошу, проводити вибори в кредит я не буду, забрати гроші від...
Zelensky reasoned that Ukraine lacks the ability to hold elections as they lack the infrastructure and other necessities to hold one. To this, Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy said,
That's what I've been thinking all along. You know, there are so many dead Ukrainians right now because of this. And it's very disheartening that this is happening. Look at this guy whom everybody looks like a pope, and every leader of the EU countries goes to Ukraine to magnify him. But look, you know, there will be no election in the country unless the US gives him $5 billion. There's countless dead. I think 350,000 more able soldiers that are in the ground right now, dead. So I just keep the comment to myself now. But, you know, the way that this is happening is all about money. It's all about money. On both sides.
Praise the Father.
May God bless Ukraine.
Praise the Father.
May God have mercy on Ukraine. Give them a good leader there.
Forgotten my beloved country, the Philippines. This has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SMNI News.
In his Give Us His Day program, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy talked about the power struggle unfolding among world leaders, as evident in U.S. President Joe Biden's push for reforms within the International Monetary Fund and World Bank to counterbalance China's growing influence through BRICS. Jade Calabroso files this report.
Well, good afternoon.
U.S. President Joe Biden will push for reforms within the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, and World Bank at the upcoming G20 summit on September 9. Biden aims to make the IMF and World Bank a positive and transparent alternative to challenge China's proposed development finance initiatives. Biden's push for reforms came following the success of the BRICS Leaders Summit in South Africa, which resulted in the more countries joining the economic bloc in January 2024. These countries include Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. This move brings 6 of the world's largest oil producers into BRICS, and negotiations among these nations are expected to use their respective national currencies, posing a significant challenge to the US dollar. This development is expected to strengthen the BRICS new development bank, established by the Association to Aid Developing Economies. Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ stated that this could signify the end of a unipolar world and the shift toward a multipolar world.
Yung G20 or a group of 20 is made up of Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, Turkey, UK, US, and the European Union. Yung BRICS is composed of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. At marami pang mga bansa yata ang sumasapi ngayon sa BRICS, ano? So, a group of nations ang BRICS invited the BRICS group of nations invited 6 countries, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to join the emerging markets bloc as it made expansion a focus of this year's summit. Tapatan na to.
Pastor Apollo emphasizes that this is a power struggle and countries should carefully consider which side to align with.
So, parang yung mga unipolar world, magiging multipolar world na. So, meron ng mga tapatan itong mga kapangyarihan ito ng mga world economists. So, sa balita ko, ang BRICS, they hold the 41% of the world population, which comprise of how many percent of the world economy. Nasa kanilang mga kamay na yan ngayon. So, kung ano ang itatapat dito at kung ano yung makainganyo sa mga bansa na sumapi dito, ay para sa kanilang kapakanan kung nakikita lang ito'y makakabuti. Kaya meron na tayong mga choices.
To recall, one of the key agendas of the BRICS summit is de-dollarization, and this is being strongly advocated by Chinese President Xi Jinping, Russian President Vladimir Putin, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Brazilian President Lula da Silva, and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Jade Calabroso, SMNA News.
Judgment call. This is what Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy said in relation to the terrifying wildfires the world is currently experiencing. But why did the good pastor say this? Let's hear more details in Sara Santos' report.
Canada is facing their worst wildfire season in history as over 1,000 fires burned, damaging more than 15 million hectares of land and leaving no province nor territory in the county spared. Ang Hawaii naman, recently, they also had a devastating fire in Maui, especially in the Lahaina city, no, na kung saan talagang napakatindi ng init na pati yung bakal natutunaw.
In the most recent Give Us This Day program on Wednesday, August 30th, Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ said that the terrifying wildfires that is currently happening in various countries, including Canada, USA, Greece, Spain, Italy, Algeria, Tunisia, and Turkey, is a judgment call. The good pastor's statement comes after he was asked about his view as a spiritual leader on the consecutive tragedies caused by wildfires in the said countries. Here, Pastor Apollo shares that this could possibly be the fulfillment of the two visions he received in his younger years.
So talagang matutupad na siguro sinabi ng banal na aklat na hindi na tubig ang gagamitin ng Ama para i-judge ang sanlibutan, kundi apoy na. Ako may mga kapayagan dyan. Hindi ko lang masasabi sa inyo ang bansa kung saan nakita ko ito'y nasusunog. At munang pahayag na yon. Siguro mangyayari yan at the later moment. And this is a judgment call kasi yung kapayagan ko noong ako'y tinawag ng Ama, nasa parang pa ako. I was 17 years old siguro. Second year high school. Yung dalawang dream ko pinakita niya na nagtatakbuhan ng tao, lumulundag, pumutok yung mga nagliliyab. Lumundag sila sa dagat, nangyari sa Maui yun. Tapos, in a larger scale, sa buong sanlibutan naman, ang second dream ko, na pati ang langit, parang banig na ginaganon, but it was on fire. Kahit lumundag ka pa sa dagat, hahabulin ka ng sunog.
Meanwhile, the European Union, or EU, recently announced that the current wildfires in Greece are the largest on record in the entire bloc. Due to the size, Greece has asked for assistance from other countries to contain the fires, from which the EU had sent 11 airplanes and helicopters. Since the wildfires started in Greece on August 19th, at least 20 wildfire-related deaths have been recorded in the said country. In relation to this, as an appointed son of God, Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy said that if Egypt had a Goshen in the times before, there's also a safe place that God had prepared in our time today.
So pasalamat tayo, meron tayong bagong Jerusalem tulad ng Goshen na kung saan magiging safe ang tao. Kaya when the world is under judgment, the Father always sets aside a place where all His people can go for safety. And if Egypt has a Goshen, then the Father in the last days has a New Jerusalem.
It can be noted that Pastor Apollo is known as a spiritual leader with a prophetic ministry in which everything he says happens. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Sarah Santos, SMNI News.
Nigeria is willing to end its diplomatic spat with the United Arab Emirates after tensions affected flight operations as well as issuance of visas for Nigerian nationals. Gratero Mori reports.
Nigeria's new President Bola Tinubu wants an immediate resolution concerning the strained ties between the African country and the UAE amid a long history of limiting flights between the two nations due to unresolved disputes. The UAE suspended the issuance of visas to Nigerians in retaliation to Lagos retentions of funds owed to the Emirates and over the West African nation's policy to block the repatriation of foreign currency, including other issues. In October 2022, the UAE banned nationals of Nigeria and a few other African countries from entering Dubai. Despite the ban, the UAE has invested $225.1 million in Nigeria's economy. Reports also indicate that some wealthy Nigerians have made considerable investments in the UAE, especially in real estate. Tinubu said he is willing to personally intervene in solving the conflict between the countries and called UAE and Nigeria a family. He emphasized that the two countries should agree on resolving core aviation and immigration issues. He ordered the dispute over Emirates Airlines and the issuance of visas to Nigerian nationals to be immediately resolved. Tinubu seeks diplomatic resolution at a time when BRICS leaders invited the UAE to be part of the group. Nigeria, on the other hand, was not invited to be part of BRICS, a grouping of major emerging economies comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Reporting from Dubai, this has been Gratero Omori, SMNA News, United Arab Emirates.
Saudi Arabia assumed command of two international task forces previously handled by foreign troops from the United Kingdom and Bahrain. Jayne Codnita has the details.
Earlier this week, the Saudi Arabian Navy officially took over the command of Coalition Task Force Sentinel from the British Royal Navy and the control of Combined Task Force 152 from the Bahrain Royal Naval Force through a handover ceremony. The Combined Task Force, or CTF 152, is one of the 5 operational task forces under the 38-nation-strong U.S.-led Combined Maritime Forces headquartered in Bahrain. Meanwhile, the Coalition Task Force Sentinel comprises an 11-nation international naval partnership tasked to protect maritime commerce in and around the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial waterway of Iran's southern coast. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most essential straits since it is the quickest route to transport oil from the Middle East to the rest of the world. Earlier this month, the U.S. military sent thousands of troops to the Gulf region after accusing Iran of seizing foreign vessels in the strategic waterway. Conversely, Iran accused American military personnel of protecting smuggling activities in the Gulf region. The change of command occurred 5 months after Saudi Arabia and Iran restored diplomatic ties in a deal brokered by China. Reporting this has been Melchizedek Cadiz, SMNI News, Kuwait.
The former Prime Minister of Thailand, who got detained after returning to the country, is expected to ask for royal pardon in the coming weeks. Chatmongkon Pisamay Goson reports.
Thaksin Shinawatra, the former Prime Minister of Thailand, who is currently in detainment, is preparing all documents necessary to seek for royal pardon.
His lawyer is currently preparing documentation to draft a request for a royal pardon, but it is not yet clear when the document will be submitted. Under normal circumstances, Thailand allows convicted inmates who have been in prison for 8 years or at least served 1/3 of the sentence to submit a royal pardon. However, Thaksin just returned to Thailand on August 22 after 15 years in self-imposed exile and was sentenced him to 8 years behind bars as decided by the Supreme Court. Within 13 hours of his detainment, Thaksin was admitted to the Police General Hospital after complaining for chest pain, high blood pressure, and low blood oxygen saturation. A doctor at the Medical Correctional Institution who reviewed Thaksin's medical records said the ex-PM need to be placed under special observation given his past history of illnesses. Critics question whether the Prime Minister is really ill, while the treatment Thaksin has received has led many to believe that he remains a VIP even inside prison. His daughter, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, a senior member of the Pheu Thai party leading the incoming government, said it is up to his father if he wants to seek royal pardon, adding that such process takes time.
Meanwhile, outgoing Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha shared his final cabinet meeting on Tuesday. Prayut said he was satisfied with his performance over the past 4 years and wants to spend more time with his family after ending his political career. รายงานจากราชบุรี นายชัดมังคล พิสมัยโกศล SMN News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
Meta Platforms, the company that owns Facebook, rejected the proposed suspension of the Facebook account owned by Cambodia's former Prime Minister Hun Sen amid allegations he's using it to threaten political opponents. Anissa de Guzman has the details.
Cambodia's Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications has confirmed that Meta Platform Incorporated will no longer pursue the proposed suspension of former Prime Minister Hun Sen's Facebook account. The technology company said it has rejected the recommendation from its oversight board and noted that doing so would not be consistent with its policies, including its protocol on restricting accounts of public figures during the civil unrest. In June 2023, the 22 members of the Board of Supervisors of Meta Platforms Incorporated had recommended to suspend the former Prime Minister's Facebook account and accused him of posting prohibited content. In response, the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications had decided to expel Facebook representatives from Cambodia and stop all their activities. The ministry also declared the 22 members of the board as persona non grata. On Tuesday night, the ministry welcomed Meta's decision not to suspend former Prime Minister Hun Sen and said the 22 members of the board are not welcome in the country because they made bad recommendations that are political in nature. Cambodia's newly appointed Prime Minister Hun Manet, on the other hand, slammed his critics and told them they should eat their words after they claimed the U.S. and the EU do not recognize him as the Prime Minister of Cambodia. Di siya nanisa di Guzman, Drangan Chakuntep Mahanakon, SMNA News, Protethay, Sawadika.
Among hundreds of higher education institutions, the Jose Maria College Foundation Incorporated bagged the championship award in the first ever Davao Region ASEAN Photo Wall Contest organized by the Commission on Higher Education. Claire Logan reports.
The Jose Maria College Foundation Incorporated reaped another victory after it was hailed champion in the Davao Region ASEAN Photo Wall Contest organized by Chad Regional Office 11 in celebration of the 56th ASEAN founding anniversary in Davao City. Among the chosen 10 participating schools representing the ASEAN countries, JMCFI won the hearts of the judges in the booth concept and design as it perfectly embodies the vibrant culture of Vietnam.
Award of the Year.
Chad officials also commended JMCFI with its unreserved efforts, a showcase of excellence and creative artwork.
To Jose Maria College Foundation Incorporated, this is the first award of the year and you garnered it. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you for the administration. And of course, thank you to Reverend Apollo Kibuloy for supporting the group.
Indeed, I congratulate on behalf of the Commission on Higher Education, I congratulate Jose Maria College Foundation Incorporated for having this conceptualization na parang state-of-the-art talaga, no?
The said contest is part of Chad's activities in its regional conference of higher educational institutions' key personnel.
This particular conference is very significant, no, as far as the Chad Regional Office is concerned, because effective this year, Chad has drafted, no, its new strategic plan from 2023 to 2028. We need to consider also right now the concept of internationalization, that we are at par, no, with our ASEAN neighbors.
Actually, this is JMCFI academic heads also graced the program to gain relevant insights in line with the school's vision of providing an assured, consistent, and quality or ACQ brand of education.
We can align all our strategies to the direction of the Commission on Higher Education, and we can also provide quality by adhering to the quality framework of the Philippines.
Let us not forget that one of the aims of Jose Maria College is to be globally competitive through its assured, consistent, and quality education.
Through the help and the JMCFI team also expressed their heartfelt gratitude to school founder Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, who has been very supportive of the school's endeavors towards achieving academic and extracurricular successes.
I didn't expect na mananalo kami ngayon, ma'am, knowing that there are a lot of schools competed in this competition.
And I am sending my heartfelt gratitude to our founding president, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, also to the school administrator and the administration and the support team, and to our faculty and staff, and to all who were with us in this event.
Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy, we would like to thank you for your support. And we cannot do this without you, Pastor. Thank you so much. You are our inspiration. Thank you so much, Pastor. This is for you. We offer this for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy, for all the support. Congratulations!
For God and my beloved country, this has been Claire Logan, SMNI News.
Alongside the celebration of the 38th anniversary of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, the 25th International Kingdom Leaders Convention will be held in Davao City this year. Let's find out the latest updates on the arrival of the Kingdom leaders from around the world.
It is for me to be back here home. More than a blessing, more than a privilege, more than a dream comes true.
Very happy and very grateful also, and very honored that we got invited once more to attend and participate in the festivities and the celebration. It's a humbling experience, actually.
To be recharged more spiritually, so I can be used more by the Almighty Father through His appointed Son.
What I feel? Wow! I consider it a pilgrimage. The best travel that I will have, the pilgrimage to the New Jerusalem.
Talagang yung pag-landed pa lang, ang una ko talagang inaabangan yung kingdom. So talagang na-surprise ako. Yung iba yung na-overwhelm talaga ako. Sabi, na ano ko lang talaga na finally makakauwi na talaga, I'm home.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here after 13 years. Praise the Father. Thank you, Pastor.
To join us in our 38th anniversary celebration of the Feast of the Passover and the 14th tribute to the King and the 25th International Kingdom Leaders Convention. Praise the Father.
Be whole.
Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ has commended President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos's approval of the Regional Specialty Centers Act, which is aimed at establishing and institutionalizing specialty health centers across the Philippines. Details of this report from Fatima Nauzil.
Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy supports the approval of the Regional Specialty Centers Act by President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. In a statement, the good pastor highlighted that this is a significant step towards assisting fellow citizens who lack the means to travel to large hospitals, especially those residing in remote areas. Pastor Apollo also shared that Barangay Tamay in Kalinan, Davao City already has a fully equipped special health center which will continue to expand its services.
Dito sa atin, sa Tamayong, meron ng isang special health center dyan, kompleto na. Merong ultrasound, merong x-ray, merong ano pa yun ba? Marami pa yun. Nandyan na lahat. Ginagawa na sa ating barangay. Super Health Center ang tawag. At saka marami pa siguro Super Health Center ang gagawin sa iba't ibang mga po. Magandang hakbang yun. Makakatulong yun sa mga walang kaya na malayo na punta pa ng Manila. O kung may kaya, punta pa ng Manila. Kung wala naman, maghihintay na lang ng kamatayan. So, magandang akbang.
It can be remembered that last Thursday, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. approved Republic Act No. 11959, also known as the Regional Specialty Centers Act. This law aims to ensure accessible and affordable healthcare services for all. The law also prioritizes the establishment of specialty centers for cardiovascular care, lung care, renal care, and kidney transplants, brain and spine care, trauma care, and many others. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Fatima Nazil, SM9 News.
China and the United States have resumed their high-level talks, and the recent one is a meeting between Chinese Vice Premier and the U.S. Commerce Secretary. According to Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy, this meeting serves as an example that visiting Beijing is not an act of treason. Jayne Sancho has the details.
Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng met with U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimundo during her visit to Beijing on Tuesday. The two parties had candid, pragmatic, and constructive discussions over implementing the important consensus reached at the Bali meeting between the two countries' heads of state, as well as economic and trade issues of common concern. China expressed concerns about U.S. actions such as Section 301 tariffs, export controls against China, and investment restrictions. Both sides agreed to maintain communication and support businesses of both nations for long-term cooperation. According to Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, the U.S. officials' recent trip to China serves as an example that visiting Beijing is not synonymous with being a traitor.
Yun nga, ang ating argumento noong nakarang Sunday na itong mga masyadong masyadong parang masyadong maka-Amerikano na kung bibisita ka lang ng hindi maganda yung sasabing traidor. Yun ang parang hindi maganda sa mga sinasabi na pag kayo bumisita ng China sa panahon ito dahil sa Ayungin Shoal, ikaw ay traidor o hindi mo kinonde na ikaw ay traidor. So, nilinaw natin yon.
Pastor Apollo further stated that the U.S. is now courting China because the latter is gradually releasing the debt that Washington owes, which could potentially lead to the downfall of the American economy.
Ito nga, sunod-sunod ang pagbisita ng mga opisyal ng Amerika sa China upang makipagkasundo sa kanilang mga trade para daw mapabuti ang China at ang Amerika para maganda yung kanilang usapan. Kasi nire-release na ng China ang pagkakautang ng Amerika. Yung binayaran ng China ang utang ng Amerika 800 billion na tayo. Ngayon, dahan-dahan nire-release. Pag na-release lahat yan, mahirapan ang ekonomiya ng Amerika. Kaya nililigawan nila ngayon ng China. O kayong masyadong parang kung sa Papa pa, kung sa Katoliko pa, they are more Popish than the Pope. They are more Americans than the Americans kung magtanggol sila.
Pastor Apollo called for a broader perspective and cautioned against bias towards any country. He emphasized the need for logical thinking and urged people not to label someone a traitor based on visiting China.
Bias. Ang hindi ko gusto ron, bias. Na pagka bumisita ka doon sa lugar na yon, ikaw ay traitor na. That is a sweeping statements na hindi maganda pakinggan sapagkat walang argumento doon at walang lohika. Kung didebate tayo, bigyan mo ng pagkakataong makapagsalita yung iba sa kanilang mga opinion. Tulad ngayon, itong mga opisyal na to, pabalik-balik sa China, sila pa nga ang nanliligaw sa China ngayon. Traitor ba sila sa Amerika? Diba? Ganun yun.
This follows Pastor Apollo's clarification amid speculations about whether he is pro-China or pro-US. But Pastor Apollo said that his loyalty lies only with the Philippines. It should be noted that the good pastor recently visited Beijing to facilitate the necessary arrangements for the construction of the world's largest indoor cathedral, the Kingdom. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Jayne Sancho, SM9 News.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. There is no reason for me to be weak in life's battles. The Father's goodness and love are so endless that He even made a way for the salvation of my soul. I put my trust in Him. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNINewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Jayne Codnita. Thank you for watching Newsline World, and thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program. May you continue to listen to SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.